In this video, I'm going to show you how to mount this TV. And we're going to do it right now. I've been putting off this project since I moved into this house, and that's kind of the thing with mounting a TV is people just kind of don't feel like doing it. So wherever they buy the TV, they have them mount it. But you could save some money if you do it yourself, and it's a pretty easy job. So I'm going to walk you through how to do it. First step is to figure out where you're mounting your TV. In my case, I have this stand right here. So I want the TV to basically be centered in between the ceiling and this right here. I want it up a little higher. So now that I know where I want the TV, I'm going to get it out of the way so I can work. I would recommend having somebody help you, but TVs now are pretty light. I want to get this out of the way so I don't have to work around it. Before I do, I'm just going to make a mark right here so I know the height of this. Now I'm going to decide where this is going, and the bed is right here, so I basically just want it center of that. So I took a measurement over there, and then I'm going to measure here, and it's going to go up kind of like this. It's going to go right about there. Now I'm going to measure up to the ceiling and bring my tape down to that line. And to make it easy, we're going to say 58.5, because it can be off a little bit. I'm okay with that. So half of that is 29.25. 29.25. So ideally, this right here would be center. So this mark right here is the ideal center of the actual TV. That doesn't mean that the mount is going to be centered. We got to take a look at the mount and figure out how it's going to work. Let's talk about the actual mount that is going to hang your TV. Now, there are a ton of different types out there, but the concept is pretty similar for all of them. You're going to have your standard bolts that are going to go into the wall, these big lag bolts, and then a bunch of mounting bolts for your TV. You have some spacers here and some washers to make sure you don't damage your TV. In this case, these are for the brackets. You even have Velcro strips for wires and a little tiny level. On the TV, these are the mounting locations, and they are going to be different on every TV. Some might be higher, some might be low like this. And then these are what attaches to the TV, kind of like that. Same thing over here. And then with the bracket that mounts to the wall, this flange right here is where you put those big lag bolts. That attaches to the wall. And then this is actually fully articulating. It moves all around, which is nice. And this is actually a little different than I'm used to. This design, probably just to save space when shipping. But these go in here, and they lock together. And then you put bolts in here. Same thing down here. Lock them together, put the bolts in, and then the TV sits just like that with these brackets. And there's usually enough room to move this way or that way if you mount this slightly off-center. So that is the basic rundown. I'll leave a link in the description over to this exact mount, but you should be able to get an idea of how to mount any one with this video, hopefully. Now I want to find studs to be able to mount this bracket to. And there's a bunch of different ways you can try and find studs. If you don't have a stud finder, you can kind of look along this wall. This is actually plastered, so you're probably not going to see the screws, but sometimes you can see the screw heads if it's not done perfectly. Another thing you can do is look directly down to baseboard if there's nails in the baseboard about every 16 inches where the studs should be. Then you can follow that up and put a test nail in here and find the studs. But stud finder is always good to have, and I have this one right here, so we're going to go along and find some studs. This is just gonna recognize that there's a screw. So there's a stud right there. It even has a center indicator. So this should be the center of my first stud. And just to be sure that there's nothing in here, I'll start it right here and go over this way and find my next stud. It's right there. We'll find the center. There we go. That should be the center right here. There's my two studs. So now we have an unfortunate situation that you might run into as well, because even though these should be 16 inches apart, for some reason, they are actually 18 3/8 to center. So that is not great for my mount. Some mounts, you can go up to 24 inches, but with mine, you can't. So this is nice though, that it comes with a template, but as you can see, if I got one bolt in here, and you look over here, I'm about 3.5 inches off. So what are my options for this? You can see right here, it says, do not install into drywall alone. You do want to hit something solid. So with this particular mount, they do have extensions to go up to 24 inches that you can order, or they recommend putting a piece of plywood or some kind of scrap wood, or you can make it nice piece of trim. I am actually just going to shift this over so that it's more in a place that's centered in the mount, and then over here I'm going to do some anchors, and I think that's going to be plenty. But you can stick to the instructions, do what you want, however you want. I think I'm going to be fine. Before I mount the bracket to the wall, I want to mount the brackets to the TV. And the reason is because I measured center, so I could put that bracket on the wall exactly centered, but because my mounting holes on the back of the TV are not centered with the TV, let's say they were up here, that might work, but it's not going to work if I just mount these, put the bracket center on the wall, and then hook these on. The TV is going to be off. So my goal is to get these to be as close to center on the back of the TV as possible. So in my case, because they're lower, I'm going to bring the bracket up higher, like this. I'm going to go in the last mounting hole. And then I can take a measurement off of this from either the top or the bottom of the TV to figure out where to adjust to either lower or raise the bracket on the wall to make this TV go exactly where I want it to go. Let's talk about these mounting bolts for a minute. So I'm going to take this one out, and that one came right out. There is not a lot of threads going in here, so I think I'm going to use a longer bolt. These are basically the things that you want to keep in mind when you're choosing your bolts. First of all, make sure that it goes in nice and easy by hand. Make sure it is the correct size thread and the correct length, because I'm going to put this in carefully and I'm going to go until it bottoms out. Right about there. If I went any further and cranked that down with the bracket on, I would break something inside this TV. So that bolt is too long. They do have a solution for you with all of these spacers and washers. You can use a combination of these, back this out, and use something like this. Go further, and then all that's going to do is get your TV further away from that bracket, which might be nice for wiring and stuff. You can also use these spacers if these are recessed. Some TVs have that recessed. I don't want to put those big spacers on here. What I ended up doing was I actually went and got my own bolt. I just matched it up, took this one to the store to make sure it was the right thread. So it's basically in between these two sizes. And I think that is going to work perfectly. Again, check, make sure it goes in by hand, and we're good. So that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to mount these brackets. I'm going to go up to the furthest hole here, and I'm going to make sure that the bolt down below is going to work. That will be in that track, so that'll be good. Put this one in first. Again, make sure it goes in easily by hand. It's not cross-threaded. And if you need a washer, put a washer on here. Make sure the head of the bolt isn't too small. I can take that one off the bottom. Okay. Those are started by hand. Again, make sure this hook isn't upside down. And then I can tighten this. I would not recommend using a drill on this. Definitely not an impact. Just use a hand screwdriver. Get these down nice and even and snug. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Make sure you're mounting it in the same hole that you did the other one. In my case, it's this last one here. I'm actually going to put washers on the bottom here. You can see where the screw hit, just barely. So this will just give it more of a bite on this bracket, just in case. You can see over here, it's barely touching. So now I'm going to take some measurements to make sure I get this TV mounted exactly where I want. First one I'm going to do is measure the width or the height of the TV. This is 30, just about 30 inches. We'll say that just to make it easy. And then over here, I'm going to hold my tape at half of 30, 15. And I'll mark the top. And I'll mark 30 on the bottom. That's where I want the TV. So if I double check the ceiling down to the top of the TV, it's about 14 and an eighth. And then I want to measure down here from the top of my, we'll call it the entertainment center, and that is about 14 and a quarter. And I'm going to call that close enough. So I'm going to use this right here as my reference point. And I'm going to hook on the other side, measure up to the top of the TV, which is going to be 16 inches. Now I can go to the top of the TV. I mark right there and mark 16 inches. And then I'll take my mount for the TV and hold that right to that line. This is where that hooks on. And right here, I know that's where I want the top of this bracket to be. I'm going to make a level line in between these studs. Kind of like that for reference. Then I'll grab my bracket, and if I was putting it center, I would put it right here. But what I'm going to do is move it over this way on that level line. Mark where this stud is, right here. And down here, the opposite hole. And then I'm going to go over here and down here. Now, if you didn't have a stud finder that marks the center of the stud, you can take a nail, and this is going to be covered up anyways now that I know exactly where this is going. And I'll hold it about ½ inch over this way. Make sure there's a stud there. And over here. So that missed. So let's find the side of that stud. So it's right there. And then that way. There. So my stud is basically right here and right here. Should be about 1.5 inches. So the center is actually more like right here. So since my stud finder is a little inaccurate, let's erase this and put this where it was going to go. There. This is the template, by the way, that they provide, which is nice. And I'm just going to shift it over like this. So now this is the actual hole where we want to get into the stud. And since this is level, this should be plumb. So right here, mark right there, down here. So this is the bolt that I'm going to be using. And I'm going to pre-drill this. This is a 5/32 drill bit. I'm going to go right in that hole. Same thing down here. And now for this side, I'm going to use these nice big toggle bolts. And I think that's going to work perfect. I'll go right here. I might want to put a washer on that. Other than that, I think we're good. So these require a 5/8 drill bit. Get in there, and then they pop out and get held up against the drywall. So I'll drill these. Now to get these out of the way, I'll just take them off. And then these go in here before we put this nut on, I guess you can call it. Toggle, anchor, whatever you want to say. And I did end up putting a washer on here. That's good. Same thing down here. Good. So make sure you're good here. You might have to open up those holes a little bit like I did with the drill, because these, once they go in, that's it. To get these in there and you unscrew the screw or the bolt, these are gonna just fall into the wall. So, hold it right here. Push that one in. Make sure it opens up. Might be tricky with that insulation. There you go. And the bottom. Give it a couple wiggles. Now what I'm going to do is hold this out so that it will hold against the back of the drywall to tighten these. Same thing on the bottom. And I'm just going to leave them loose for now. I get this where I want it. Now, I actually need a ratchet for these bolts. And I can start these in. Hold the bracket up to where it needs to be. Same thing down here. Tight, but I don't want to go too tight because I don't want to crack drywall. So I'm going to stop right there. I can double check that I'm on the line on the top and then just tighten these a little more by hand. Now we can give this a little integrity test. That's not going anywhere. So now I can erase all these marks. That's why I like to use a pencil. Now I can install these pieces. There we go. Line up these. I'm going to pull this out. These go right here. Now I'll just lock this at a slight angle down. Perfect. Well, not exactly perfect, because I would love to have an outlet right here. In fact, I started the process. I even started filming, but I discovered something really cool. So I started down here because I was going to add an outlet here. And when I put my hand in here, it went all the way in. And what's back here is there's a chimney chase on the outside, but we don't have a fireplace. So it's just a chase. We have a pellet stove insert downstairs right here, but it vents directly out. So I'm thinking I could put an insert here, maybe an electric insert. So I'm not gonna put anything right here. I'm gonna talk with the wife and figure that out. But I did make a video on how to add an outlet, and I'll leave a link in the description over to that. But as far as this video goes, we're just gonna hang the TV. So I'm gonna carefully lay this down. I gotta take the feet off. As a little tip, I am gonna keep these, so you might wanna think about it, because things change. You might have a temporary situation where you wanna set this up somewhere. So just keep them around. Put them in your attic, in your basement, whatever. Now this is the part where you should definitely get some help. But I don't have any friends, so I'm gonna try and do this myself. I'm gonna pull this out a little bit and try and hook right on here. I pulled that out evenly. I just want to get it close, and then I can just slide it just a little bit. I think that's good. And just so you can see, I'm going to spin this, and then pretty much all of these have some type of locking mechanism. And for this one, you just bring these up and put a bolt or a screw right there. Just like all the rest, start it by hand, make sure it's going in. Tighten that down. Other side. If the TV ends up not being level for whatever reason, you can loosen the bolts on these brackets and adjust one of them, or you can loosen these ones right here. There's 4 bolts, and you can adjust it from there. I would try with this first. But if you put this level, the bracket on the wall, you should be good. And this is the full articulation. You go flat, and then it's all the way out here. And you can even move it like this if you wanted to. Okay. Just have to deal with that cord for now. The space at the top is the same as the one on the bottom. That's not my favorite thing in the world, that cord hanging down, but I did make an awesome discovery. So when it comes time, that'll all change. So if you needed to hang a TV, I hope this video helps. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, dusty.
Very dusty. Hold on. Is that good? Was that one better? I'm actually going to take off. No, I can't. Motherfucker. Wouldn't crank on him. Don't crank on them, Lauren. Good? Okay. Or this track is a little, what is this called? Groove, what is it? Adjustable hole, I don't know.
Safety first. Safety first, Lauren.
I can live with a, so the top and the bottom are about a 1/4 inch off. No, about an 1/8 inch off, really. Stay. No attention to the warning sticker. I didn't install it into drywall alone, Lauren. I installed it into a stud as well. Well, I guess I could just leave that there. Fucking A, dude. Rust, that's better than no thread. Am I good here? Nice. Oh. This is a chimney. So it's even at the top with the bottom. With the bottom, the space is the same at the top as it is at the bottom, bitch. So the space at the bottom, we're almost done.